Welcome to The Real Dope, a podcast for anyone walking alongside someone battling addiction, based on the powerful book, The Real Dope on Dealing with an Addict, by sisters Elizabeth Brand and Meridith Elliott Powell. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share authentic stories, and provide the honest guidance. Let's begin today's journey and turn survival into strength.
Hey, this is Meridith Elliott Powell hanging out here with my sister, Beth Brand, and it is time for The Real Dope. How did you get here? A podcast all about, well, not necessarily addiction, enablers, those who love addicts, those who support addicts, those who have to deal with addicts. Now, I always like to remind you, my sister and I are not therapists. We are just two people that have lived the story you are living. We have loved addicts, we have supported addicts, and we have had too much of our life focused on trying to deal with addicts. So, Beth, what's up today? What are we going to talk about?
Well, last time we talked about boundaries, and what you need to make your boundaries stronger is detachment. And detachment is something that comes up pretty early on in Al-Anon or in any kind of therapeutic place that you're in. But boy, it's a hard concept.
So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what do you think the actual difference is between boundaries and detachment?
I think boundaries are something that you can draw at any time. But I think with detachment, you are able to draw better boundaries. But I think getting to that place of detachment, I don't know about for you, but for me, was really, really hard. Because I used to think, I'd hear it like, oh, detach. How can you detach from him? It's my dad or it's my husband. What they do reflects on me. So to get to that point of detachment, you and I kind of changed the meaning in our own head, if you remember. We went from like detachment as being something mean that you do, like, I don't want to deal with you anymore. I'm not related to you, to it's an act of love and compassion.
It's an act of love and compassion for both you and the addict,
Yes.
Right? I was listening to an interview yesterday with one of the men who had actually hunted down Osama bin Laden. He was talking about leadership. And I love this quote. He said that you need to think about clarity as kindness. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like detachment and boundaries are being really clear with yourself and with your addict about what you want, what's important to you, and what you will and you will not tolerate. And I feel like early on, I danced all around that. And I wasn't clear that, or I said things I didn't mean, like, if you drink one more time, I'll leave you. Right. And the truth was I wasn't going to do that. So I feel like you set a boundary by getting clear about what you want and what you don't want. And then you detach by going, okay, then I am not going to engage in that behavior. But man, it's hard because sometimes they are messing your life up.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes. So where I got to, and I just have like my enabling takes on a thing where I can't leave him like this. I can't not do the thing that will help here for myriad reasons. Like, I could be telling myself it's out of kindness, but through this detachment, I learned that it wasn't out of kindness. I had other ulterior motives, which we'll get to later. But the first thing I had to do was separate the disease from the person, to detach, because I could detach from that disease. It was ruining my life too, and I hated it. Mm-hmm. And I loved the person, and I had to separate the two, because that person that I love, who I love, deserves compassion, not my anger. And detachment is the way that we get through that. And then to think of it as, when I do the detaching, draw the boundary, draw that compassionate boundary, I'm not rejecting the person I love. I'm rejecting the addiction. I'm refusing to continue to feed that addiction.
How do you detach emotionally, though? Like, I was thinking about this, is that, like, I feel like when I learned to detach, the humiliation that I felt from being connected to an addict left me. Like I remember when Doug, my husband, was 6'3" and he was down to 140 pounds. I can't remember the last time he'd eaten anything. And I thought he was going to die. And I was worried I would be responsible for it. Like if I didn't get him help, that I'd be held accountable. And so we lived in a small town. I had to call the police. I had to, and when the police came, the mayor of the little town came. Everybody came to my house and they saw how I was living.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I was not ashamed. Now, before that, I couldn't so I think about detaching as emotionally understanding that if he's drunk and naked in the backyard, that's not me, that's him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge leap.
But it's also not him, it's the disease.
Mm-hmm.
And if you run around connecting yourself to that disease, like, for instance, Edward, my husband, had all these illnesses he decided to have, like headaches, throat pain, backaches, and headaches is the king of all the addiction diseases because it's very hard to diagnose what's wrong, and they will give you lots of drugs for that. I was running around, like, working really hard, organizing all his bills, helping him with his doctor's appointments, and being the good wife. And the reality of it is I was feeding the whole time into that. Who was keeping the addiction alive more, Edward or me?
Yeah.
I was just as involved and just as heavily involved. And until you can back off from that and separate the man you love from the addiction, and if you really love him, you're going to help him, and you don't care what state he's in the backyard, you're not going to help that addiction.
So how do you get to detachment? How do you get to the point that when they are, when their bills aren't getting paid?
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember the IRS calling and I'm completely freaked out because one of my very first detachments, I don't know why I did this, but it was good. I never filed a tax return with him. So my finances weren't messed up with his finances. But letting him swing on that rope to deal with the IRS was hard, was really hard.
Do you think it's a process? I mean, it took me a long time to get to detachment. And even when I talk to people now who are just like starting to realize that there's a problem in their house, I just don't push that. I just think that is a thing that has to grow. You have to like get there.
Do you detach now?
Well, when you just said that about finances, I thought that was interesting because we keep separate bank accounts. My husband and I keep, and for no reason, like we share money like crazy. But yeah. And I am able to detach from things that bother me. I have learned, because enabling is just not with addiction. I mean, I do it in all sorts of ways. I definitely like try to settle my head with people.
Well, I think it's funny because it's a mental job for me to detach.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my husband does something now, does something, and I don't like it. Like it's something like he yells at somebody or something like that. I have to detach from that, and that is a mental game. That, I mean, it isn't like I just got detachment. I'm like, well, that's him. He's got to deal with it, or whatever. I don't roll like that.
Well, both of us, we have our second husbands are gregarious, to say the least, and they talk to people in public when we just were raised not to do that. And so we both, I look at my current husband and I say he is a grown man. He got along fine in the world before I got into his life. He knows what he's doing. He's allowed to do what he wants to do. But yeah, that is a form of detachment.
Yeah. And it's funny to me that even in this point that it's still something that I have to work on it. How do you detach though when they are really messing up your lives? Like maybe when things are getting repossessed, or those types of things.
It's a sad thing because you have to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
You can't blame it on the other person anymore. So we actually had a little formula for that in our book on how to begin detaching and how to think about it. And what we said was the first thing you do is, if you notice yourself saying, I have to because, I have to get Doug out of the backyard because I'll be embarrassed by my neighbors. I have to pay the IRS because I can't let him. I have to get him a refrigerator because this is what I did with my husband, because I can't let him live without a refrigerator. No, that statement has to change to, I did so because I chose to, which is a lot harder to deal with.
It's a lot harder to do with, but there's also a freedom in that. It's like,
yes.
like I was so mad at Doug for so many things, but when I realized that I was living how I was living because I was choosing to live there, I said this in a keynote one time. I said that I was so focused on what was holding me back, I couldn't find the path forward. And I feel like detachment is the first step where you can let go of what is holding you back, even if it sucks. Even if you are sitting there and you just got evicted for the third time and you've got to go find another apartment and your car got impounded because your addict drove around high or drunk. There is something to be said of, I am going to let go of this. And it gives you the energy to start to find a way to live in peace, whether that's to leave or just to live with your addict.
And if you say, I choose to go get the car out of the impound, I choose to pay for that, I choose to do that, then you need to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Are you really helping? And whatever the questions, what are you accomplishing by this? Because as I kept paying those medical bills for Edward, all I was accomplishing was letting him go back to the medical professional, his pusher of choice, the medical system. What is your real goal here? Like, are you getting that car out of impound because you want to save face? Or do you just want the person who's suffering with addiction to just be quiet and stop bugging you? Like, what are you really doing? And then whatever it is, you take responsibility for your answer and your action. And it's not easy. None of this is easy. It's not like, oh, okay, I'll just do these 4 things and then I will be detached and then I won't feel bad. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. Or I'll do these 4 things, I'll detach and they'll get better.
Yeah. No. And in fact, at the end of our chapter on detachment, we wrote, people wanted us to have a happy ending to our story. And we didn't, because we didn't have a happy ending. There was no happy ending for us. There is for some people, but not for us. And so that's the reality. You detach for yourself and for the person you love, not for the addiction. When you stay connected, you're connected to the addiction, not to the person you love, because your person you love isn't there right now. They're striving to get out too, and you're not helping.
One of the biggest challenges that I had with detachment was the fact that I still had to live with the addict while I was detaching. I think that's incredibly difficult because it isn't, you detach, but you're still kind of in the cesspool of
it. And
it
is your spouse. Their actions are a reflection on you. That's what I never got. Like, sometimes people would say, what they do isn't any, it does reflect on you. You are going to feel it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, you also feel the pain of it, which I think is one of the reasons to detach. I think the other thing that I think is important to note is that, to some degree, not detaching, like, it obviously fuels our need to control. And the irony is that we are controlling things that doesn't matter. Like, if Rob
and we're not controlling anything. The addiction starts controlling us as well as the person we love.
But if Doug had gone to jail for the IRS, that would have been the best thing. Like, the fact that the IRS was chasing him was not his biggest problem. And for me, I just wonder, like, to some degree, if it was a distraction, like, oh my God, I got to take care of the IRS. When I think about it, this man was killing himself literally with 5ths of vodka on a daily basis. If the IRS put him in jail, like, who cares? No big deal.
And you are preventing him from feeling the pain of what he is doing.
Right.
Or the addiction, because I really do. I'm detached from the addiction. I don't detach, I still love the person, but I detach from the addiction. But what you were just putting off his pain, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. If I had not, like, orchestrated and paid all those bills for to doctors and stuff, like, Edward would not have been able to go to the hospital. He would have taken a different route, I'm sure, to get what he needed. It may have dawned on him faster. Maybe not. I don't know. But I wasn't helping.
Right. So for those listening today, and you're sitting there and you've got a really bad addict in your life. Let's make it the worst scenario that it is. It's your child. Um, and
And your teenage child
and
is
your
even
teenage
worse.
child. And where do you begin with detachment?
First of all, I would say you begin with awareness of yourself. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Are you helping? Is it helping? Is it helping? And I also think you begin by separating this is what helped me, the addiction from the person. Are you really helping the person, or are you helping the addiction with your actions? And that's how you can, I think, start to detach.
Yeah, and I think the first thing that we have to do when we start to detach is to say what alcoholics have to say to themselves,
Mm-hmm.
is to admit that we are powerless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the hard, there is absolutely, positively nothing you can do to stop this person from chasing whatever it is that they're chasing to numb the pain that they're in. You have absolutely no ability to
Well,
control
what you
that.
can do is you can take care of yourself
Exactly.
and take care of your pain. And in that, maybe they begin to feel the pain. Maybe their actions, they don't have you to, especially with a child. I've just kind of noticed this. Again, I am not a psychologist. I have no insight. I just noticed this from talking to so many parents, is that they no longer have you to blame. Sometimes I think that's the really good thing about rehab for teenagers. And then they go to a halfway house afterwards, or whatever they call it now. And because they can't blame mom and dad for their problems, which teenagers love to do. You know, it's what they
Absolutely. I
should
think,
do. It's
yeah,
developmentally appropriate to do.
even healthy
Yeah,
teenagers,
yeah,
right?
right. It's developmentally appropriate that they do that. But then they stop like feeling the pain, and that's the importance of detaching from them.
So the other thing I think you need to do is I think you need to get help and support. I think that you need to find other people that approve of detaching, believe in
Mm-hmm.
detaching, and will support you on the journey of detaching. Rob and I were driving home from the beach last night, and we were talking about anger, and I brought up mother and how mad she got at things that were ridiculous to be mad at.
Mm-hmm.
Like she would, we went to the Flat Rock Playhouse that night. She got so mad at something at the Flat Rock Playhouse and stuff that her anger was so displaced because it couldn't be directed at the addict,
Mm-hmm.
and because she was trying so desperately, to save them. And I think when you understand and you begin with detachment, all the anger you feel is coming from the fact that you haven't set a boundary and you have not detached.
Mm-hmm.
Because sadness and pain, none of that is going to go away with
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
detachment. It's not going to go away at all, but it will diffuse the anger.
Yes, the anger will go away. You'll have more clarity. And when you take responsibility for yourself, you're more in control. Which is what you love, because you're an enabler. Because the reality is, like, running around paying off tickets and the addiction is totally controlling your day. Every day, the addiction controls your day when you allow it. But when you start taking responsibility for yourself, you give yourself control back over your life. And you give your person suffering with addiction the opportunity to feel the reality of what they're doing, maybe before it's too late, maybe not.
Yeah, and I think too that it's important for us to know when we do not set boundaries and we do not detach, we then pull other people into our
Oh,
world.
yes.
Because if I'm running around paying bills, bailing him out of jail, I'm letting somebody else down in my life. It could be another child in your life. It could be your work. It could be, it could be your friends. It could be a lot of things.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
lived that story
Yeah.
of my second wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think that you're being the martyr focused on the addict because you're not detaching, you're not setting boundaries.
Well, you have to, because we go back to the have to,
Right.
because changing that to I'm doing this because I choose to.
Tell the story of your second wedding.
You tell it better than I do.
Okay. Well, basically what happened with my sister's second wedding is here she is about to embark on her second marriage. And believe me, she thought this through a long time before she was going to do it. So it was a happy occasion. for her. And my mother insisted it on my brother Ted, who was a full-blown, angry, mean, sarcastic addict at this point, insisted, first of all, that he come to the wedding, which my sister didn't want. And the second, on the day of the wedding, she wanted us all to go to therapy for Ted to try to help. We did an intervention with Ted, none of which worked. But we went along with it. We did it, even though we didn't want to. We detached. And I look at that now, and what we should have done was let mother go and let Ted go and not have them at the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. And the wedding became all about Teddy.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait till it was very small. It was only like 10 people. I just wanted my son to see a ceremony. So I just had like 10 people. The whole day became about Teddy and not about me. I couldn't wait to leave the wedding. Neither could my husband. And then at the last minute, mother, who was supposed to take care of my son while Peter and I had a few days together, said that Teddy was staying with her. So you had to take care of my son, and you had to drive him back and forth to school for 2 days or 3 days, which you live in a different town. So
I think if you'd have talked to our mother at that point, she did not think she was causing any disruption to our lives at all. And I don't think she believed that she ruined your wedding.
She believed she was loving Teddy.
And she was so focused. I think that's the other thing about with no detachment and boundaries. You're so focused on the addict, you don't care about anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good example. She was just as sick as he was and couldn't think about taking care of him was more important than anything. He didn't need to be at that wedding. It didn't make any difference.
No, he didn't care.
He didn't care. And it was just a little thing. It was not like some big family thing, but, and it wasn't about him. But she was so focused, and she had not detached. She did not separate Teddy's disease from her child.
Yeah. And with that, and we did not draw the boundary nor detach from the situation that we needed to, which leads to a really good transition to what we want to talk about next week. I am working on bringing in a guest. It's going to be the first podcast where we sit down and we really interviewed somebody who not only lives in this world of addiction, but really focuses 100% on helping enablers. And I know one question I want to ask, and one thing I want to know is, how do you and when do you figure out just how sick you are in the dance that is going on, and coming to that awareness and accepting that awareness? What about you? What are you curious to learn?
I think that is a really good question. I just want to make it more and more clear and get a good understanding of what enabling is and how sick it is, because I think that is the one thing that just didn't get enough attention. I can just remember asking myself when I finally did leave my husband, what happened here?
Yeah.
I really thought all I was trying to be was nice. And it took generation. I mean, just so much therapy. And so much, like Al-Anon, and then therapy, and then therapy, and then Al-Anon. It took years till I got to the point to see my responsibility in the whole situation.
I could not agree more. Yeah. So I think this is a long journey to really understand what is going on in the world of addiction, but more importantly, what is going on with the enablers, those people who fuel the addiction. So Beth, what's your big key takeaway from today?
My key takeaway is awareness. Just try to be aware. When you do that, I have to, because, and catch yourself. Just start there. And then ask yourself why you're doing it.
And I'm going to add to that is I would say start small. Just detach in one tiny area that you don't have to be perfect at this.
Just practice being the person, the addiction and the person. Practice separating those two things. All right. We'll see you right back here next week for another episode of the Real Dope Podcast. Remember, if you have subjects you want us to cover, you have questions, just reach out to my sister, reach out to me. We'll cover them right here on the podcast. Keep you completely anonymous if that's what you want, because we only have one goal, and that is that you find your way out, your path out of the world of addiction. See you next week. Bye.